It annoys me, right? Because in the first video, you weren't wearing a Christmas jumper.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm thinking, I've got the leg up here. And then he rocks up in that cracking jumper.
It's not bad, is it?
It's not bad at all.
It's all right.
I'd wear that on a night out. It's only me. Yeah, it's decent.
To be honest, I don't even remember if I was wearing clothes the other day. So I could have just been sitting there completely starkers.
I do remember.
Yeah.
You were.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Thank the Lord for that. So today we're going to have a look at the most essential games on the Switch, aren't we? We've done it differently.
Yeah. So as part of the 12 days of SwitchUp, we always do a 20 essential games for new Switch owners. I mean, the Switch is towards the end of its life, but that's not to say that people aren't still buying it. Do you know
Exactly,
what I mean?
yeah.
But what we're going to do this year, normally we do 10 genres and then 10 first-party games and 10 third-party games. This time we're going to do 20 genres and 20 first-party games as one list, and then a whole other list with 20 third-party games.
This is why you are the planning person.
Exactly right, yeah. So this will be part one of those two videos, and there should be some good games on it.
A massive thank you to the sponsor of this entire series. It's Untold Tales, isn't it?
Untold Tales, yes. Do check out their website. They're giving a Switch away this Christmas, and they have a host of sales going on at the minute. There'll be full details in the description.
And of course, we're also giving away 2 Nintendo Switch consoles. It'll be to someone that's really engaging, won't it, with the 12 days of SwitchUp?
Yeah, the only thing you have to do is have commented on every single one of the 12 videos. There's nothing you have to say particularly. Just have commented on all 12 and we will pick people at random.
Absolutely. All right, what are the most essential games on Switch? Part 1?
Part 1.
Let's find out. Now, thank you to our sponsor, Untold Tales. Do go check out their amazing game, Chernobyl, the first-person RPG survival game set in and around Pripyat that has base building mechanics, brutal combat, or you can take the stealthy approach. Now, the highlight game today is Arise: A Simple Story, chiefly the definitive edition that has a massive discount, and I think I might have actually mentioned this in a sale a couple of weeks back because it's a quality game. You set out on an emotional journey and you have to manipulate time to solve the various puzzles in the world, thus reshaping the surroundings. This spans from just a few seconds to entire seasons, with you fast forwarding, rewinding, or even pausing time. And what's quite unique about the genre here is that you can actually have a friend join you for co-op play. This version includes a digital game edition, the downloadable digital extras, those being the art book and the original soundtrack, and there are a couple of features that are only on the Switch version, things like photo mode, gyro support. Oh yes, I got it in there. All the discount information and owner's discount information. For those who own selected Untold or Cubic titles, well, you'll find that down in the description, where you'll also see any information about their current Switch OLED Christmas giveaway. A massive thanks to Untold for sponsoring the entire 12 days of SwitchUp.
Right, let's start off then with 2D platformers. Let's go right back to Nintendo's roots with this one.
Nice.
So our first essential game, I would say these days, you got Super Mario Wonder.
I think that's a good shout.
Yeah, I think that's probably the not just the best 2D Mario platformer on the Switch, but one of, if not the best, for a long, long time.
Yeah, didn't this include some like new mechanics related to that whole Wonder system?
Yeah, so you had the Wonder Seeds, I believe they were called. It's been a while since I've played through it, but they would like warp the level for a short period of time, and there would be something you needed to do to catch the flower or the seed up.
That's right.
And kind of return the level back to normal. And they added some variety to the levels, and they were an interesting take. But personally, it wasn't even that.
No.
It was more just the level design itself was so strong, stronger than I'd seen it in a Mario, obviously 2D platformer for quite a while. I just felt they really returned back to their roots of your classic, Super Mario Brothers on the NES, Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. It was hitting those levels again in terms of level design.
Yeah, and it seems to have that thing as well where anyone can pick up and play it. So to have both of those together is quite impressive, actually.
It's a recipe for a very good game, and that's exactly what this is. And I would say this is a strong start for an essential pickup if you like your platformers. We're going to do a second 2D platformer just because I think it's a kind of a staple of Nintendo, isn't it, But I didn't want to do another Mario one, so we've gone for Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
Ooh, this is a good one. This is a good one.
Yeah, this is a really good game, and like Donkey Kong Country platformers, I think are fantastic, going all the way back obviously to the Super Nintendo. Back in the day, they were kind of classed as being quite derivative, and
Okay.
the platforming not being seen as good as the Mario platformers of the time, and even other companies' platformers. I always think they've got a bit of a bad deal. I think actually the platforming and level design was always very strong.
Yeah, I'd agree.
They were built differently, they were made almost for speed running or for just blasting through, and I feel that was quite a nice change to what Nintendo traditionally did and how they built their levels with the Mario games. And Tropical Freeze was a very strong entry in this series, and when it released on the Wii U, as it first did. And they've added a few bits for this particular game. They've added a new playable character being Funky Kong, who is essentially invincible. And it's a bit of it goes past easy mode, it's invincible mode. But it's nice to have, if you want to kind of play through a level without fear of dying, first to get a feel for it and then go back with the other characters that are available. The characters that are available, aside from obviously Donkey Kong, you have things like Cranky Kong, who's got his cane that he bounces on, a bit like Scrooge McDuck in the DuckTales game. He's got some nice throwbacks to other games in there as well. And again, just a very good time, a fun game to play.
Does this one have multiplayer?
Yes, it does. And,
nice.
It's worth playing. Very good game. Let's move on to 3D platformers now. Again, kind of Nintendo's evolution as the N64 became a thing back in the day. I don't think you can go much further than mention Mario Odyssey, first and foremost.
Yeah, really good game. Very good. This is one that obviously I think we both played through. I do like the idea of the whole possession, air quotes, mechanic, the cap system essentially, where you put that on different things and then get to control it. But that wasn't actually my favourite aspect. I liked it where they're almost, it's not showing off, but like where it goes to like the 2D sections. I found that such a good idea.
Yeah, it was very clever. Just very typical Nintendo. That extra mile that they go in their games that other people don't necessarily go to, or they see Nintendo do it and go, it's a good idea.
Plucky Squire.
Yeah, but no, it's a cracking game. Obviously, you have to collect the moons to it's your currency, if you like, as you go through each of the different worlds, and there are a stack of them to find. You don't need to find all of them. I mean, they're obviously very frequent in terms of how many there are, and you'll find yourself doing a number of different tasks in order to do just that, and different objectives you need to meet. The levels, the worlds themselves, some of them are quite standard, I guess, for 3D platformers these days. I did really like the New Donk City stage, which was very different. Most of them followed a similar sort of pattern, and you had almost this open world level with human characters that were much larger than Mario.
Yeah, that almost broke the fourth wall, that level, didn't it?
It did, yeah, and I'd be interested to see them do something like that for a whole game, and have levels like that for a whole game. But yeah, no, this is a great game even now to this day. It's been out a good 7 or so years, hasn't it, by this point? Still one that if you haven't got in your collection, you'd be wondering why. So yeah, definitely one worth picking up. Again, we're going to do a second 3D platformer because there are a good few very good ones. You could have gone for something like Mario 3D World, another Mario game, but just for the sake of variety, I'm going to mention Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
That's a good shout. Did you do the review, or was this Asdin?
Asdin reviewed it, and we spoke about it in an Interesting Games episode, way after the fact. Yeah. A good couple of years later. I played this one through. I'd played bits of it, but I played it through on holiday this year, actually, and really enjoyed it.
Great game, isn't it?
Very good game. I like the Kirby character. This time he's got the ability to take on the form of particular items like cars and things like that by inhaling them as he always does.
As you do.
As he does for sure. And that takes or plays a big part in the gameplay mechanics as you go through each stage. It's just incredibly charming. It's got a lovely warmth to it as you go through all of these tropical islands. A very different game to Mario Odyssey, but I do feel they both have their strengths and they're both worth owning for that,
Yeah, I'd say so. I think this is one that I need to play more of. But I remember the early trailers and people were like, wow, that looks amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely looking game. Very, as I said, very charming. But yeah, one that maybe wouldn't get or you wouldn't think of it because Mario springs to mind.
Of course, yeah.
We're going to move on to racing games now, and with first party in mind, you can't really look past Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. There are other games. There's a cruising game, Cruising Blast?
Cruising Blast, yeah.
Which I thought was great, and I think I probably prefer to Mario Kart personally, but I think you'd be remiss not to mention Mario Kart in this instance in terms of essential games. I don't play it as much anymore, but when I do play it every so often, like my daughter loves it.
Yeah.
So every so often I play it with her, and it doesn't take long for the game to remind you why it's so good.
Absolutely. Yeah, come Christmas time, it's when you do play a lot of those kinds of games, isn't it?
Exactly.
And Mario Kart, it's been around for some time, but in fairness to Nintendo, they have released new packs and new tracks over the years, haven't they?
They have done, yeah, and this deluxe version takes those extra DLC packs that they released when this game released on the Wii U, and they obviously put it all into one package. And it's got, you know, an abundance of characters and tracks and cups and all that. It's got a lovely sheen to it. It looks delightful. That orchestral music that plays with it. It's just such a high-end game. You know, you can't help but just be impressed even playing it, you know, all these years later. And as I say, just turning it on every so often. It's just such a lovely game. Great tracks, online mode as well. So much to do on it. You could lose godly amount of hours in this game, you know. Right, we're going to move on to fighting games, and there's only really one that you could mention in terms of first party, but to be fair, it's a bloody good one, and that's Super Smash Brothers. I think the Switch version is Ultimate. I could be wrong there. But now I'm a big fighting game fan.
Yeah.
I love my fighting games. I've never really got into Smash Brothers as much as other people have. Just because I grew up with the arcade games of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and, you know, your Neo Geo releases, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's the same for us. We were big Mortal Kombat fans.
Yeah.
Like, we had a Mega Drive and we had a SNES. And then I remember we got the Smash Bros that was on the SNES, and it was going to be this big, like, wow, like, it's going to be amazing. And it just didn't click with us.
Yeah, I was the same. It was the N64.
Right, N64.
But I know
was
the
it?
one you mean.
Yeah.
Obviously very crude in terms of its graphics, and there were only about 8 characters, and I'd seen the adverts at the time on the telly and whatnot, and it just seemed like, how has this not been done before?
Yeah.
You know, taking those Mario characters and putting them into a fighting game. And then I played it and I was like,
Yeah.
it's okay, it's fine, I suppose. And then I think it was the GameCube one where I thought, actually, no, this is good. Like, I can see it now, you know, I can appreciate it now, with the move to a bigger roster and, you know, the mechanics being refined. It's a massive game in terms of how many characters you have, and there is a lovely blend of that kind of newcomer's chance of winning just by tapping buttons, and a much higher level of intricacy that's hidden behind that, and you can just find the game at your own level, and I always think that's a good thing for any game to get right.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I've ever bridged that gap between, like, slight interest and I really want to play this.
No, that's fair enough, and many people won't, and some people will forever enjoy it on a casual level. Some people will play it for a half an hour until they've seen everything they want to see out of it. Others will play it for the rest of their lives, and you know, credit to the game for being that accessible. But if you do like fighting games, and obviously you're a big Nintendo fan, and for you, having those characters fighting each other, you know, just trumps anything else. Yeah, pick this one up, you won't regret it. Right, open world now, and I think maybe this is going to be controversial. I've gone for Breath of the Wild over Tears of the Kingdom.
Ho-ho!
I prefer it, I've got to say. I think I prefer that first game. I think that wow factor for me outlives the extra mechanics that the sequel brought in.
I think that's fair enough. I think I don't think personally it was a great idea having the same world.
Yeah.
I think no matter which way you slice it, it's the same world.
Yeah, I think the thing with Zelda, I could be wrong, there's people that know a lot more about this than me, but when they first started coming out, they didn't tie themselves to story as strongly. They were legends. They were exactly that kind. It could be the same hero, it could not. It could, you know, like they were just like stories passed down through campfires. And then as they became more popular, I think Nintendo felt pressured to create timelines.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, obviously, if you're creating a sequel to Breath of the Wild, you have to tie it in, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. And I think that affects the game world they could have created, or they could have moved away and done something completely different, set somewhere completely new otherwise, but felt maybe they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe it was down more to resources and having a ready-built world and just not wanting to do that, I don't know. But I just felt that first Breath of the Wild, you know, the first one, climbing up the mountains and jumping off, and your stamina and all that, building that stamina bar up, or the ring up, sorry, whatever, that captivated me, and I couldn't quite find myself, for want of a better phrase, caring as much the second time round.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You know?
You can only do a first once.
Exactly.
You know, you can only do that feeling once.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter which way you try, if it's so similar, you know. And actually, that's like you were saying, with being able to go to these different avenues. I played Wind Waker for the first time this year, and that was quite different, right? The main character was like, hang on, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, they went in a very different direction there, and it worked well.
Yeah, and at the time, there was a massive outcry because people wanted realism.
Right.
And then you had this GameCube system, you know, all the power under the sun compared to the previous generation. And we got this cartoony Link, and people were like, what on earth is this, you know? But these days, people love it.
Yeah.
You know, in hindsight, people looking back and nostalgia is high and whatnot. But yeah, I would say, you know, let's be a bit more objective for a minute and say that if you've played Breath of the Wild, obviously that's different. This is an essential for list for new owners. If you like the idea of Tears of the Kingdom bringing in almost like like a construction mechanic where you can merge things together and build your own items and solve a lot of physical puzzles, or physics-based puzzles rather, using that. If that appeals to you, then get the sequel. Get Tears of the Kingdom, because it's everything the first game was. It's bigger and there's an extra mechanic. If you want something a bit more concise, I'd be maybe erring towards that first game.
Yeah, I don't think you'd struggle to argue that they're not both essential.
Yeah. Absolutely basically. Right. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Right, top down game. I've gone for the new Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Interesting. Now, not because I think it's the best choice. I personally would have picked Link's Awakening, the remake.
Yeah.
But I feel this is a new game. It's trying to do something new with the series. Let's credit them for that, and you know, make people aware of the fact it exists, and you know, let them make their own minds up. But this one, obviously, you play as Zelda as opposed to Link. Yeah. And you, rather than having a more traditional fighting system where you obviously have a sword and a shield, although you know you kind of do have those as well. But to start with, it's all about the echo mechanic, which is where Zelda is able to recreate items or even enemies and use them to do her bidding, or use them to solve, again, physics-based puzzles, environmental puzzle. Yeah, all right, so I'm going to put you on the spot here, all right? Because in your previous one, you're talking about Breath of the Wild, and for you like the original Breath of the Wild because it does those elements that you value more, and I'd agree with that. Yeah. With this one, why have you gone for Echoes over the one that you just mentioned? Because I would say that arguably does those elements better. I'll tell you the reason why. It's because I feel that the performance in Link's Awakening at times is so bad. It is. It's hard to wholeheartedly recommend it. Yeah, that's a good shout. It would be so subjective. I'd be saying, oh, you know, it stutters like anything, but I like it. Whereas with the two other Zelda, you know, the open world ones, they work, don't they? They work. Yeah. You know what I mean? I can be a bit more subjective, I feel. But so that's why I've gone with the newer one. But again, you know, both essential. Both are fantastic, and they do great things, and Nintendo do really know what they're doing when it comes to innovating or you know, like doing something clever with puzzles and what have you. So yeah, either way, I don't think you can go wrong as long as you can accept a few flaws. Brilliant. Right, we're going to go on to RPGs now. We're talking kind of traditional turn-based RPGs first. And again, we're going to give a few options because there are just so many. There's loads. So the first of those is Pokemon Legends Arceus, which I thought was great. I really liked this one. Yeah. And this is set kind of way at the beginning of the Pokemon timeline. Yeah, in advance, isn't it? Like, yeah, it's like at the creation of time almost, isn't it? And you go out and you capture the Pokemon, and you run into kind of battles as you go, and you don't necessarily get locked into turn-based battles. You can still move away, can't you? It's quite interesting how they did it. Like, you can sit in the grass and attack, surprise attack, or you can just brute force them, or you can just leave them alone completely. And it's funny because for me, it went back to what makes Pokemon good. You know, I want to go out very free-flowing, and I want to just track these creatures down, be able to see them from a distance, you know, plan out what I'm going to do. It took it back to what made Pokemon fun in the first place for me, and that's why I liked it. A lot of the superfluous fluff was kind of not stripped out, because you did still have the ability to do the whole like breeding stuff and all of that, but it was just streamlined and it worked well. And also, like, the whole modern setting Pokemon stuff, it can get, like we've said in previous ones of these, can get too bogged down with worrying about story and narrative, and like the actual gameplay aspect goes out the window. Yeah, and there's things, you know, they started to bring in like ribbons and berries and this and that, and it moves so far away from what's actually fun about Pokemon.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
I know, I agree with you completely. And also I feel that as a kid, if someone has said, think of a far off future where games could be more than you can imagine at this point in time, what would you want a Pokemon game to be like? And you'd be like, I want to crawl around in the grass, I want to throw the ball, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
That's not to say it's perfect, and I hope the sequel that's coming refines the formula, but it was a great first attempt at trying to create what we as kids probably would have wanted a Pokemon game to be all those years ago.
Yeah, and having some of the Pokemon be your navigation as well, the one that could go in the water, you know, ones that could fly, things like that. That's a good idea. I'm genuinely a bit concerned about the next one being set within a futuristic city.
Yeah, whether that detracts from what this one achieved.
How's it going to work kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay, like I said, a couple more RPGs then. So we've got Mario and Luigi Brothership, which came out this year, of course, and you reviewed. And I again would say is an essential Switch game, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It does everything that you would kind of expect from it, but I think it could so easily have messed up on the creativity aspect. And each island has something unique about it and actually plays quite differently. So you get to some of the later islands, they're still introducing new mechanics and ideas, like being able to grab the two brothers together and like helicopter around. Yeah. That then becomes intrinsic for that island. And actually, what I really like, and something that again gets forgotten quite a bit, is as you gain these new abilities, you suddenly remember the first island that had that one area that you couldn't reach.
Right, yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff that has you explore the whole world in a free way. I like it. I think it's a great game, actually.
Nice. And one more traditional turn-based RPG. This is Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Another one that released this year was on the GameCube originally, of course. And just another fantastic game. Very polished. Lovely use of humour, good writing behind it, a good battling system where you're on stage and you are conducting the fights in front of an audience, and you kind of use their enthusiasm to build up your attacks at times and stuff as well, incredibly polished. The game itself, as it was on the GameCube, holds up to this day. Yeah. And obviously they've tweaked it a bit and polished it up a little bit as well. Yeah, I mean, you've got 3 very good RPGs there.
Some great choices, and there's a few others as well. You've got some brilliant choices for the first party on Switch, I think.
You have, definitely. Let's look at TRPGs, tactical RPGs now. Just the one choice here. Right, I've put Fire Emblem. I mean, you've got Three Houses, which I think would probably be most people's pick. I liked Awakening. I loved Awakening, actually. I really enjoyed it. I preferred it over Three Houses. I think I'd probably be in the minority there, so I'll leave it open, and whichever one appeals to you more. But the Fire Emblem series is about obviously building a team up with characters that you meet along the way. Yep. And then you're on a grid, and you obviously position your characters as you see fit, and take down the enemies, and you'll level up each individual unit, and then you can move to a new class, and get new weapons and whatnot. And Awakening at least had the idea of removing the permadeath if you wanted, or at least having it where you could rewind within a level, so it wasn't quite as
like finite.
It wasn't as brutal. Like you are dead. Because in the older games, obviously, if that happened and you wanted to keep that character, you had to restart the whole battle. Now there are still times where your mistakes are so grandiose that you will have to restart still, because even if you rewind, you get so stuck in a loop, you just can't stop a character from dying. So there is still that threat, but I think it was a very clever choice, a very sensible choice. These games are fantastic. I'm not the biggest TRPG fan, but this is a series that's always piqued my interest and has always had me playing TRPGs.
Yeah, see, I'm a big TRPG fan, and I think these games have kind of passed me by.
Yeah, I mean, Three Houses for me, the reason I say one over the other is I felt that got a bit too heavy with its story, and it's school-based. I'm not interested in school-based stories anymore. I'm too old and grumpy for all that.
Persona has left the chat.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why I prefer the other one. But yeah, great games and worth playing for sure. And then finally with the RPGs, we've got an ARPG, and we've gone for Xenoblade Chronicles. Well, we've gone for the third one, but obviously you've got 3 great games on the Switch there.
Yeah, absolutely. When you said ARPG for this, I was like, is that an ARPG? And yeah, it is. You kind of have that instance-based combat where you kind of go into combat, and then you have control of what your characters do, but they do it themselves rather than you spamming the buttons kind of things.
That's right. Yeah.
And I like that combination of the 2 different styles. It's not turn-based, it's not full-on controlled action.
No.
But it is say RPG, you know,
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
I've been playing this for about 3 or 4 years now. I'm still not near the end. I'm like 70 hours in. It's such a good game. Like, I know you say about storyline, and we always have this back and forth, but having the best of both worlds certainly helps.
Yeah.
If you've got a good, strong story, the good, strong world, and the excellent gameplay, it ends up on an essential games list.
It
That's
really
what this
does.
is there for, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure you audience can appreciate why we've focused on RPGs for a moment at the expense of perhaps of some other genres, but just because there are so many good ones.
Yeah.
But moving away from those now, we're going to move on to puzzle games, and I've picked Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. I don't know if you've played this.
Mr. Toad. I can't. No, I haven't.
This is a very good game. So you play as Toad, obviously. This started as a mini game within Super Mario 3D World, and it
That
became
doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, it became its own game because it was just very clever. You basically moved dioramas to be able to see the full world and find stars that you then have to get Toad to, and he can't jump or anything like that. So you have to kind of manipulate the world and what have you to find them and get them. Really lovely, charming game. Very, very clever mechanics. And again, it was a Wii U game to begin with, but one that perhaps either you're an existing owner and you've just forgotten it existed, or you're a new owner and wouldn't even give it a second thought. Do you know what I mean? But if you like your puzzle games to be a tiny bit more action-based in terms of you're walking about and you know, this is a very good one and worth considering for sure. And then we're going to do party games with, you know, Christmas coming and what have you. And we've picked the most recent Mario Party game being Jamboree.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not a huge Mario Party fan, and Jamboree actually charmed me.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I'm not the biggest of fan of this genre or this series.
Yeah.
But this one was very good. Really, very, again, as you say, very charming, very well constructed. The boards were fun. The kind of, how do I say it, almost like deviousness of how it all works, and kind of stealing coins and this and that, you know, is a series staple, but I really enjoyed it in this game. And there's a few other game modes in there as well that you can try, some that were online. And yeah, just especially with Christmas on the horizon, this is the sort of game that you could play with anyone in the family. And have a good time, I think, and you know, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, we played a bunch of this. I run a youth group, they were playing it. Like, yeah, anyone can pick up and play this, but this is made, in my opinion, for everyone rather than just Mario Party fans.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. We're going to move on then to first-person shooters, which is a genre that Nintendo don't obviously use very often or make games for very often.
Yeah.
But in this case, we've got the Metroid Prime remaster.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a discussion about this yesterday, didn't we? And it's like, it's not pure first-person shooter, but it certainly falls within that category, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, which is kind of why we changed this formula up this year for this particular list, because we felt we were shoehorning Nintendo games into certain categories. I think this can class as a first-person shooter, albeit it's much more exploration-based.
Exactly, yeah. It's got those Metroidvania elements in it, obviously, being a Metroid game.
Yeah.
But you've still got that classic first-person shooting element in there. Although it does have a kind of lock-on mechanic as well, doesn't it, for targeting certain enemies and things.
Yeah, I think the shooting comes secondary, then it, you know, like we just said about exploration. But even aside from that, you have quite an interesting, almost like platforming feel to it when you go into the morph ball.
Yeah, it's really cool, that, because it's got physics-based system as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The whole thing's physics-based, and you have to go through little shortcuts and stuff. It's such a good game.
It's very clever. It's very clever at the time, and it still works very well. You know, obviously, however many years later, 20 odd years later. But then you have things like the scanning system as well, and things like that. Which, I mean, I'll be honest. I feel that's maybe a part of the game that does get a bit tedious after a while. Yeah. I mean, it's not. You don't have to do it, of course, but when you first start doing it, it feels very, you know, you can feel the world building element to it, and it makes you feel like you're there. But then after a while, it's like, oh, you know, done enough scanning now. Yeah, I tell you, the thing that got me that I really struggled with was the map. So it's got this very unusual, like, three-dimensional map, and I just couldn't get my head around it. No, I couldn't. I struggle with it. It's like a wireframe map. Yeah. And again, like in terms of the world building, and has that classic science fiction feel to it, where you're zooming in and out of certain areas. But if you just want to navigate, it's not the best. And the lack of a fast travel system in this game, I think, hurts it these days. It hurt it back then, but you know, you notice it all the more these days. Yeah. But you just have to give credit for just how unique this game was when it came out, to take what was still relatively new in terms of what they'd established with Metroid. You had the original on the NES, you had a Game Boy game, you had a Super Nintendo game. I think that may have been it at the time.
Right, okay.
I don't think I'm missing one. And then obviously they went in a completely different direction and kind of blew people's minds.
Yeah, when I did the performance review of it or whatever, I think had I played the original release, I would have really been able to appreciate the improvement in visual quality as well.
Yes, it was kind of almost understated.
It really was.
It wasn't. I mean, obviously it's a remaster. That's what the title implies, but it feels more than that, doesn't it? Like they do. It does feel like they've gone more than just remaster, and they've released it for a decent price, which is something they don't always do when they release older games.
Yeah, that seemed like an actual odd decision, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because around the same time, they're releasing other things at full price. But I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take Nintendo doing something odd if it means I have to pay less.
Exactly right.
Great game.
Very good game. We're going to move on to hack and slash now. And again, there were a few games that you could pick from here. For the most part, though, I think Nintendo would have been publishers.
Right, okay.
And not developers here. So you got things like the Bayonetta games I'm talking about.
Yes.
You could have picked from, obviously, but we've gone for Astral Chain.
Ooh, Astral Chain. That's such a loved game, and I think people are going to be so happy to see that as the choice.
Yeah, and I think it's probably one that, I'm pretty sure actually, because you never see it on store shelves anymore.
No.
You never see it in shops, you know.
Oh, really? It's a bit of a rare one.
It's one that's starting to disappear away, and if you can find it, it's definitely worth grabbing. You basically play as like a police officer, and you have this entity that is attached to you, and you use that to navigate the environment and to attack enemies. But there's also this almost like a cyber noir story going on at the same time. You know, this mystery. Yeah, it's good. It's very well handled. It's just a very classy game.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very different to Bayonetta, albeit they do share some similarities at the same time. And I do prefer it over Bayonetta as much as I do like that series too.
Yeah. Do you know what this reminds me of? And I know it's completely unrelated, and you might not even know what I'm talking about. There was a game on PlayStation called Future Cop. And it just had this style. Like, I can imagine it. If you crossed Future Cop with like Ghost in a Shell, I feel like you'd get something like this.
Yeah.
This might be my Christmas game, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like I want a game that I feel like I could complete in one holiday season, you know?
Yeah. This is well worth playing. Yeah, I picked this up ages ago now, like a long time ago, and I played a decent chunk of it, but just couldn't stick with it for various reasons. Nothing to do with the game at all, just life and channel and whatnot. But it's one I'd happily pick back up and probably have to start again just to get my head around what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I'd happily do so because it's a great game. And yeah, if you can find it, then do. I would recommend seeking this one out. Right, we're gonna look at Metroidvania now.
Okay.
And I think there's only really one choice for this, and that's Metroid Dread.
Thought you were going to say that.
Yeah. I mean, this was a great return to form as far as I'm concerned, because obviously we just spoke about Prime, and the Metroid series had kind of been in a bit of flux for a while. There'd been a few more traditional Metroidvanias, Metroid games over the years, but more so for handheld devices, and obviously with the Switch being a bit of a hybrid.
Yeah.
It hadn't had one up until, what was it, a couple of years ago, I guess? Maybe 3 years ago now, I think this came out.
Something like that, yeah.
And it's a great game. It's a very good Metroidvania. It does a very good job of making you feel isolated on a planet.
So the only thing that I'm not sure about with this, I haven't played it yet, is the whole Emmy mechanic.
Yeah. I mean, I can't... People will have their opinions on how it's handled. I think the concept is fantastic. I think the execution is okay.
Okay.
I think it outstays its welcome a tad, but then I think most game mechanics do, to be perfectly honest. They do most things, like just movies, whatever, overuse stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
They stick onto it, or they find a winning formula, they find something they think this is great, and then they just kind of do it to death, and it loses its appeal or its scare factor or whatever. And that does happen here. I'm not going to say it doesn't, and it does lead to some frustrating moments, but for the most part, I think it's handled well enough that it doesn't detract from the gameplay. Once you finish the game, you'll look back fondly, even if there were some frustrating moments along the way to get to that end point.
Right, and even in terms of outstaying its welcome, it's only about, like 9 or 10 hours?
Yeah, this is like a traditional Metroidvania. you know, the Metroidvania genre has kind of evolved almost into two. It's almost split into two these days, and some Metroidvanias are so much longer than they ever used to be.
Than they ever need to be, right?
I think so, personally. Yeah, I do think so. But some people, that's become the new norm. That's become what a Metroidvania is now to them, which is fair enough. But I just feel there's a lot to be said for a nice, succinct 10-hour story, and you're done, you know, and this fits the bill quite nicely there. It's got a very difficult final boss.
Really? Really
difficult. So it's got a parry mechanic that you'll learn through the game. And it's one of those games where, for the most part, like the vast majority of the game, you don't need to know how to use it well.
Yeah.
Until you get to the final boss. So you can do yourself a favour by learning to use it well early.
Right, okay.
Because if you just fluff your way through like I did and then get to that final boss and then all of a sudden you've got to learn this mechanic or you're never finishing this bloody game, you know? So yeah, just bear that in mind. But I thought this was a very good Metroid game, and I was, very happy to see it return to its roots.
Lovely. Okay, what we got next?
Right, the penultimate game and the penultimate genre, we're going to look at the life sim genre. And with this again, I think the answer is pretty obvious. Obviously, we're going with Animal Crossing: New Horizons. I mean, it's one of those games where some people will lose the rest of their life to it, and other people will never really get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I should be in the lose your life category. But I'm definitely in the, not never get it, just can't be bothered to get it.
Yeah, I think the thing with Animal Crossing is that it's not as immediately accessible as some similar games.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you play Stardew Valley, for example. It's not quite the same game, but it's similar enough, I think. You know, you're plonked on a farm, you got some basic tools, you go and buy some seeds, you're off and away, ain't you?
Yeah.
You play Animal Crossing for the first week. Every day they're opening a new shop and you're standing around waiting for something to open. Do you know what I mean?
And it's real time, some of
it's
it,
real
isn't it?
time for that, you know. And then, you're going and doing whatever you're doing, pulling up weeds. And it can feel really pointless to begin with. Like, really pointless.
Yeah.
I know you don't have to have a point, you can lose yourself to it. But until you really start to get into it, until the island opens up a bit more, until you find your play style within it,
right?
It can feel like you're doing it for the sake of doing it.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah, and I get it. I do understand it. Now, some people like me will play at the surface level forever and be quite happy to do that. Return to it every so often, do a few bits, meet a few more residents, whatever. Other people, honestly, like the level of creativity that they find within, like using templates to create paving stones and creating these incredible worlds. It's awe-inspiring, to be perfectly honest, Yeah,
and I can see the potential of it. I went into, Irene from Isha Gaming.
Yeah.
When it first came out, I went into her world and I was like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
This place is amazing.
Yeah,
and then went back to mine and was like,
I know, I'm like that. I'm like that. I return to my island and it's just sad. And it's quite depressing. And I want to go on a holiday to someone else's again. But it's, things like that. And then just little nuances, like going to another island, someone else's island, and gathering the fruit that's native to their island that isn't native to yours, coming back and planting it to grow
is that
trees.
A thing, is it?
Yeah, you can do all that stuff. It's great. There's so much to it if you want to find it. And those that do find it, as I said, lose themselves to this game.
That's intrigued me. That has. Just that one little thing has intrigued me. That has.
Yeah, no, good game. But yeah, I think you just need to put maybe more effort in initially to ultimately get more out of it.
Yeah. What's the last one?
Right, last one then. So we're going for online team-based multiplayer.
Okay.
And for this, we've gone with Splatoon 3.
Yeah, Splatoon 3 is funny, isn't it? Because I would say it's objectively the best in the series. Yet it's not the one I've had the most fun with. Probably just because of time. I think we got to play so much Splatoon 2, didn't we?
Yeah.
Especially online, that we were like, this is the bomb diggity.
Splatoon 2 certainly is the one that I've enjoyed the most, but that's only because of, as you just said, playing it more. So I think it's fair to give 3 the nod.
Yeah.
But what a clever idea. When the Wii U original came out, Wii U was struggling, it struggled for its whole life, but at the time, Nintendo just had one of those moments, where stars align, and they released this, and they released Mario Maker.
Yeah.
relatively close together, and they just gave that console such a shot in the arm. And from nowhere, like no one cared about the Wii U. It was they were having games mentioned in the Game of the Year award. You know, like they just do that. You know, they hibernate sometimes, and then just wake up and they're like,
pop out.
Yeah, let's make an absolutely brilliant game, shall we? Yeah, it's done. Have that.
And the problem, there is a pitfall, isn't there, to that you then can't get out of the mold of what you've made for your sequels.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know when that released. Now, let's call it 10 years ago. It may have been a little bit longer than 10. But to have 3 games in 10 years, suddenly what was fresh and unique feels formulaic.
Yeah.
But it's still a very good game.
It is.
You know, and that team-based element of it does work incredibly well. And it doesn't really matter which team you get based on. Because whilst it is a team game, you can kind of just do your own thing and help the team at the same time. So you don't need to worry about being particularly skilled at it. You know, I don't think it's a game where you'd have to worry about, be apprehensive about other people's thoughts and opinions on you. So. You could just crack on, couldn't you, and have fun. But yeah, so much fun to have with Splatoon. One that maybe goes under the radar a little bit these days, just because it's had so many sequels in such a short space of time. But yeah, if you're like you're online and you want something that you can keep returning to, yeah, you can do a lot worse in Splatoon. So there you have it. There are 20 essential games for the Nintendo Switch if you are new to the console, even this late in its life, or if you are just looking to see what you've missed out on.
Lovely stuff. All right, Glenn, someone's just run in, right? They're desperate. They're sweating.
Yep.
They're buying the console for their child. They need to know an essential game off the cuff. What are they buying?
Apart from the 20 we've just mentioned.
No. What are they buying?
What are they buying?
Yeah.
Or if they were me.
Okay, they're not. But
they're not. But in this instance, I say they are.
They are.
I mean, I can't look past Link's Awakening, the remake. I love it. Doesn't mean it's an essential game necessarily, but I'd be buying it all day long.
I think that's a good choice. So there you go. Whatever your name is, go out and buy it. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you to our Patreons, our members, and all of you that enjoy the content. Make sure you save a bit of money on the eShop.
Yep, SwitchUp.gg, our website. You can get your eShop cards. You get yourself 5% of your purchase price back. It's cash back. Another quick thank you to Untold Tales for sponsoring this whole series. And again, do check out their current competition. Link will be in the description. And as Mark said at the beginning, we are giving away a couple of Switches of our own. And again, just a quick reminder, you just need to have commented on all 12 of the videos by the time this series finishes. Thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, see you tomorrow, and happy gaming.